Please join me in welcoming Governor Bel Edwards to the stage, and we are honored to go to him.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Abhishek, thank you very much for that introduction. I do want to start by thanking AI Dash and their entire team for asking me to join all of you today. As you've been told, I'm John Bel Edwards. I had the great honor and privilege of being the governor here in Louisiana for 8 years. I don't mind telling you, this is the first real speech I've given since January when I left office. But I'm excited, and my life is really good. I'm practicing law. My office is only about a block from here, so that worked out really well. Spend a lot more time with my family now, and my wife and Don and I, we're proud grandparents of a 9-month-old. Our second daughter has one on the way in December, and our son's a freshman here at Tulane, and I spent the night with him last night. He was not happy about that. So life looks different these days, but we are enjoying it. And before I dive into the topics for today, I do want to start by welcoming all of you to Louisiana and to New Orleans. Some of you are probably here for the first time, and I will warn you that you can have a really good time if you want to here in New Orleans. I do hope you're taking advantage of everything that our state has to offer. If you're a football fan, tonight the Saints are going to beat the Broncos at the Superdome, right over here. Actually, about half the Saints are hurt, so I'm not sure how that's going to turn out. We're actually going to host the Super Bowl in February. And when we do, that'll be, we'll tie Miami for the city that's hosted the most Super Bowls. I know that tonight you're going to the Sazerac House. I've been there many times. It is a wonderful museum. It's a great location. You're going to have a lot of fun. And it may not be technically true, but we do like to claim, and you're going to see at the Sazerac House, that New Orleans is the birthplace of the cocktail. And I know you associate New Orleans with things like jazz music and great food and so forth, but we like to believe New Orleans is where folks started mixing their drinks rather than drinking their rum or their bourbon straight. So as you dive into the important work ahead, I do want you to experience a little bit of our culture, see for yourself how we do mix things up in Louisiana, whether it's a great seafood gumbo, a cocktail, or game day. Now, one of the reasons that I was happy to accept this invitation is the topic of the conversation. It intersects with so many of the challenges that I faced as governor. A multitude of various natural disasters, and intermixed with climate change. We have a rapidly disappearing coast here in Louisiana. By the time I'm finished talking, if you measure from when you got here this morning, about a football field worth of coast will disappear, the coast of Louisiana. And so that's a serious problem, 2,000 square miles since 1927. But we've got the energy transition that's happening here, incredibly important. So these are all issues that require companies to step up, be forward-thinking, especially when it comes to creating a safer planet and more resilient communities. And that is what the topic of this conference is all about, evolve. And I know you saw it on the slide a while ago with Abhishek. So Charles Darwin's journey to the Galapagos Islands taught him and taught us that it's not really always about being the strongest or the fastest that's the key to survival. It's also about the ability to adapt. And he saw that even the smallest creatures could evolve, changing and adjusting to their environment to find new ways to thrive. So it is a lesson as old as time itself, but it's one that's unfolding today everywhere, including, and I would say especially, right here in Louisiana. The Great Mississippi Flood came in 1927. It would have been easy to believe then that that was the end of the story for so many communities. The waters rose, families were displaced, neighborhoods just washed away. In fact, Randy Newman, a Louisiana native, captured the sense of despair in his song, Louisiana 1927, with the refrain, "They're trying to wash us away." But just like the finches observed by Darwin, Louisiana adapted. We didn't just rebuild, we evolved. We learned to work with the river to understand its power, to create a system of levees and spillways that transformed the landscape. We became stronger, more resilient, and more attuned to the challenges that we faced. And we're evolving again with sediment diversions that now connect the river to the marsh in a controlled fashion to deliver sediment to actually recreate that marsh that we have been losing, but without a threat of river flooding. And that's the lesson that we carry forward today. The world may try to wash us away, but if there's one thing we know in Louisiana, it's that we were built to rise, to adapt, and to keep moving forward. And as you watch the news and what's transpired in Florida and Appalachia with the recent hurricanes, it resonates. And the challenges we've had in Louisiana, they're being felt to one degree or another all over the country. I would tell you that, and this is true according to studies on a per capita basis, climate change and these natural disasters have affected Louisiana more than any other state on a per capita basis. We've been dealing with these challenges longer than most of the other places. It is not a distant concern. It's our reality every day. It's real for our fishermen and our farmers who see the effects on their livelihoods. It's real for communities that have had to relocate because their homes are no longer safe. You know, we've got families who for generations had homes in camps in places where the land has just literally disappeared. We have climate refugees here in Louisiana. We know these challenges all too well, and therefore we understand better than most that climate change is not a future threat. It's happening now. That's why the work that we do to address it is so critical. It's why Louisiana must continue to find solutions, and we're going to lead the country in that effort in many respects. Not only is the state heavily impacted by climate change, but also one of the world's leading energy providers. When it comes to a changing climate, one of the biggest changes we've seen in recent years is the rapid intensification of hurricanes. You know, we've got 4.7 million people here in Louisiana. There were times when I was governor that more than half of them did not have electricity. The two strongest storms to ever hit the state happened in 2020 and 2021, Hurricanes Laura and Ida. They were exactly a year apart, and they hit during the worst part of the COVID pandemic. We had to rewrite the script on how to safely shelter people impacted by the storm. And you all have probably seen some of this in your neighborhoods from time to time with tornadoes or, depending on where you live, other hurricanes. But this is Southwest Louisiana in 2020. You can see it's quite a mess. What often surprises people is that it isn't the immediate impact of the storm that causes most of the fatalities, not here in Louisiana anyway. They were most often related to improper generator use and carbon monoxide poisoning, excessive heat. They're out working, cleaning up, and they don't have air conditioning that they're accustomed to, and so forth. And the common denominator behind all that is if the electricity hadn't gone off or had been restored faster, maybe some of those things wouldn't happen. And so that really is why this conference, why AI-, why this topic around evolving is so critically important. It was in those moments of crisis, with hurricanes battering our shores and leaving devastation in their wake, that preparedness literally was the difference between life and death. And it is this kind of preparedness that AI- is pioneering by harnessing the potential, the promise of artificial intelligence and all of the abilities that our satellites have to actually image what's happening on the ground in real time. While we've been fortunate in Louisiana lately, we didn't actually have any named storms in 2022 or 2023. We had a hurricane this year, relatively mild, but there really is no such thing if it was your home that got damaged. But we know that it's just a matter of time before we're hit again. And here we are getting close to Halloween. I remember several years ago, Hurricane Zeta popped up and hit us right at Halloween. So when they say that hurricane season lasts all the way to November, that's real. And with the Gulf being warmer than ever and staying warmer later into the year, this is very real for us. But it really isn't just hurricanes that threaten our state. There are floods, tornadoes, occasionally an intense freeze. The last natural disaster that I faced as governor had to do with wildfires. We had the longest, hottest, driest period that anyone could remember. And in Louisiana, we typically have problems with too much water. But we didn't have enough. And right here in New Orleans, the Mississippi River was so low that salt water was coming in from the Gulf and threatening our drinking water systems. But elsewhere in the state, especially in the central and western part of the state, we had wildfires that consumed thousands of acres, tens of thousands of acres. And that's not a threat that we are practiced at. We didn't have the equipment. We didn't have the training and the expertise. And we were borrowing people from all over the country. But it is a real threat going forward because we know that climate change is going to manifest itself in different ways. And that's one of the things that we have to be ready for. And I'll never forget, we were in a Black Hawk helicopter. We landed over in Vernon Parish to go look at some areas that had been devastated by wildfires. And by the time we got back into the Black Hawk about 2 hours later, there was another fire next door. And there you go. I mean, you can see what that looks like. Well, we're just not accustomed to that in Louisiana. I'll never forget seeing fully mature pine trees that just like they were a matchstick, where the top of the trees just in an instant caught fire. And then they create their own weather systems, and the wind blows, and it just carries it forward. And literally faster than the people on the bulldozers could get out in front of it and actually try to create those fire lanes. We had a 1,000-year flood in August of 2016, the first year that I was governor. Some used to joke that I was the crisis governor, but it really wasn't a joking matter. We actually had 244 emergencies in 8 years. We had 50 state disaster declarations, and in those 8 years, 21 federal disaster declarations. The administrator of FEMA actually gave me a plaque when I left the office because they couldn't find in their records where any other governor had ever had that many disasters. Now, the good thing about it is we have a very well-trained and experienced National Guard and state police, wildlife and fisheries, our folks at GOSEP and so forth. But the problem is they got good because they have so much experience. And we would rather not have all of those disasters in Louisiana. But the one thing that I can tell all of you, no matter where you're from, it's not a question of whether if you're going to face one of these disasters. It's simply a question of when. And that uncertainty is a reminder of why you have to stay vigilant and you have to be prepared. And that is why the work that AI Dash is doing is so critical. And it's critical every day. And it's critical whether there is a storm or not. We have to be able to evolve to meet the conditions of our environment. Across Louisiana and many parts of the country, we've seen some residents lose faith in their power companies and their electric companies. And quite frankly, some of this is rooted in unrealistic expectations that some people think that switch is supposed to work all the time, regardless of what's going on. And in other times, we've seen political gamesmanship and so forth. But we all agree we can do better. And that's what brings everybody here today. By adopting smarter and more reliable technology, like the technology offered by AI Dash, we really can start to rebuild that trust. We can show people that their energy providers are actually investing in solutions that not only work, but they anticipate problems before they actually happen. AI Dash, and I'm so proud of this, is already working across Entergy's entire system, not just here in Louisiana, but in Texas, Mississippi, and in Arkansas. And as a result, we know that fewer homes and businesses are going to lose power. And those that lose it are going to be restored faster. So the work that you're doing shows how technology can solve some of the world's biggest problems. And it's exactly the kind of innovation that we need to continue to evolve as a society. And a lot of people are scared, and I'm one of them, about the implications of artificial intelligence. But this is a way that we can use it for good and demonstrate the value of artificial intelligence. One way we can start rebuilding trust, by the way, and driving progress is by bringing people together from across the spectrum. You can do it government and private sector, various sectors of the private sector. Academia can come together, and that is precisely what this conference is all about. Your work is about more than just technology. It is literally about securing tomorrow. It is about making sure that our children and our grandchildren, like the grandchild I told you about that I have, they inherit a world where the lights stay on. And y'all know this is not just a matter of convenience with lights and electricity. Dialysis centers don't work without power. People who need dialysis don't live without it. Hospitals all have generators. I can promise you that a couple days after they start up, they fail. And so this really is about making sure that people live through these events as well. It's about using the tools, all of the tools of the 21st century. And in this case, taking artificial intelligence and satellite imagery and seeing what you can do to solve problems. And in fact, these are the oldest problems that humanity's ever faced. But there are climate scientists believe that these problems are happening more frequently. And when they do, they are more severe now than they have been in the past. The world is changing fast. And with that comes new challenges that demand fresh and innovative solutions. AI Dash is a prime example of how using advanced tech can make a real difference. But this cannot just be the work of a few trailblazers. Every industry has to contribute, whether it's energy, agriculture, infrastructure, you name it. We need to recognize the importance, as I said earlier, the power and the promise, the potential of emerging technology. And we have to embrace these tools. We're not just solving today's problems, we're getting ahead and we're solving tomorrow's problems today as well. It's about making sure that we're not just keeping up, but that we're actually staying ahead in a very uncertain and unpredictable world. And I know this seems like a daunting task, but I'm confident that with companies like AI Dash leading the charge, that utilities, regulators, that the people in this room, that you will meet the moment. I'm proud to see the strides that you are making, and I'm even prouder that Louisiana is part of this journey. And it's one of the states benefiting the most and the earliest from AI Dash. And we don't have a moment to waste here in Louisiana. Now, I know that I've spent a lot of time talking about the challenges of Louisiana because that's what I'm familiar with. But these challenges are all over the country. They're all over the globe. That is undeniable. But I do want you to know that it's a big part of Louisiana's story, but Louisiana is so much more than that. It's a place of incredible culture and community. The history here is different than the history in the rest of the country. The food is different, and I would say better. The music is tremendous. Louisiana, New Orleans, there's just not a better place in the world, but we do have our challenges. And despite it all, from the bayous to the streets of New Orleans, we are very proud to call Louisiana home. And you're going to find welcoming, resilient people here. And it's that spirit that drives us to face our challenges head on and to come out stronger on the other side. So I'll close by again thanking you for the work that you do, for being here in New Orleans to do it even better. Your innovation, your commitment to excellence, your dedication to work, making the world a better place are exactly what we need here and everywhere. And together, we can and we will build a future that is more resilient, that allows people to thrive despite the challenges that they face. And I know that together we're going to work to secure a better tomorrow. So thank you all.